That's nice, though.
Rack it up, I got a bit of the bank to make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, I'm up in the greenhouse. Ball it up, I'm with the gang, we taking shots off the rebound. Fucking my post, the same now, I've been humble too long.
Hey guys, welcome to Wealth on the Rocks. We got here Dennis, Tulpa, and then he's, what do you call yourself, a mortgage extraordinaire guru? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, we can do that. It's a mortgage relationship manager, so basically a loan officer.
Nice.
Is that most kind of run it with. So specialize in the purchases, refinances of residential mortgages. So that could be your primary home, second home, vacation home, or investment property.
Very cool, very cool. And today we're drinking, what is this? Nelson Bros. He's a Tennessee local drinker here. I don't even know how to pronounce this. I'm not even going to attempt, but it's the Mourvèdre. Do you know French?
I do not.
Mourvèdre Cask. So we'll do a little bit of this today. You don't know what time it is today, so it's all good.
As I say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Yep. So, no, we're having fun. We're love to make these connections with individuals. I love that, we got connected at in person, like, what do you call it? Like, networking. It was kind of like a motivational networking event type thing. Like, I love to do those kinds of things. You get to meet a lot of great individuals locally. By the way, this is something that you definitely should do if you're an entrepreneur. Go out and network with people, get to know your community. Go out there, and if you don't have any events in your area, you're the one that needs to put the event,
Yeah, so, no, I agree. And it was Impact Social.
Yep.
Right, 23.
Yeah, that's
Jim
right.
Morris, shout out to Jim for putting that on.
Yep.
That was a big deal for him, and it was a huge success.
Absolutely.
I don't go to many of those kind of all-day speaker events. That was probably my first one, I would say, an all-day event. I really enjoyed it. The speakers were great. You take a lot from it, but I think the big thing is when you kind of listen to those people speak, you're taking your notes, and as Jim said, you got to implement that, right? So sometimes I get overwhelmed, and you're like, oh man, there's so much to take here, but just pick one thing, right?
Okay,
one thing from one speaker, let me implement that. Let me try this for a month or a quarter. And kind of see how that goes.
That's right.
And just kind of take those pieces. I just busted out that notebook last week and kind of looked through it again. I'm like, okay, what can we do here?
Yeah.
And one of it was Craig Siegel's, he kind of preaches take action, right?
That's right.
So you have these ideas, and I think this is similar to you in this podcast, right? You probably thought about it for a while.
Yeah.
And then at one point, you just got to take the action.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one of the biggest, honestly, one of the takeaways from that. It was like, your branding, your messaging, everything all goes together, and you could be the best CPA in your area, you could be the best realtor in your area, and if nobody knows who you are, then there's a problem, right? Yeah. You can't get as far as you want with that. And so one of the biggest things that I've been trying to do this year is, like, obviously getting the word out, this podcast, just having fun with it. And who knows, like, my goal is to just make some good connections, and get older people to tell their story, right? Older people to share what they do, and hopefully do some business together and help other people out. And that's all what's it about, So
and we met at the social event.
Yeah.
Right?
Cheers.
Cheers, sir.
Yeah. Ooh, that's nice.
That is smooth. But so we met at the social event, and that's one thing too. When you go to these events, I've learned through time is that some people there. Yeah. You're there to meet new people, but you tend to gravitate towards the people that you know.
Yeah,
and that kind of defeats the purpose of meeting new people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we were walking around, and we kind of saw each other. We're both kind of standing by ourselves, and walked up and struck a conversation and had a phone call after, and now we get to this. So I think that's a lot of it when you go to those events. You have to be open-minded to get uncomfortable. Yeah. Walk up to somebody you don't know and just have a conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, man, tell people about yourself. Like, what's your story? What are you doing now? Tell everybody about you.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Detroit, moved to Nashville in 2007. So I like to say I was kind of like on the frontier of the big push here. I think 2010 was kind of when it really hit.
Everybody was moving to Nashville. I mean, I feel like we got, 100 and some people moving a day or something?
Yeah, that's the number. But it's crazy. So I kind of saw it on the front end, not an OG, I haven't been here forever.
Sure.
But long enough that I've seen the city change, and it's such a great place. I enjoy it. I'll probably never leave. Currently, we're up in Hendersonville.
Nice.
So I've got 2 little girls and a wife. So we're up in the suburbs of Hendersonville.
Yeah.
Like that area just for the school district.
Yeah.
Growing up in Michigan, lots of lakes up there, so being close to Old Hickory.
Kind of
attractive.
And you said, did you grow up in Detroit or what part?
Detroit area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Metro Detroit. Went there. Started out of high school in trade school. So got into trade school, heating and cooling. Did that for a couple years, working for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
Awesome experience. But after a couple years doing that, I just realized that wasn't me.
Yeah, that's the hockey team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So I realized that wasn't me, sitting behind a cooler working on a condenser for 4 hours, I'd bust out and kind of start talking with the electricians, and I just noticed myself like more of a social person.
Right.
So then it was an opportunity to move to Nashville, move down with a couple buddies in 2007, just to kind of spark some new interest, see what happened.
Yeah.
We're all big country music fans. Nobody sings or writes or anything.
That's weird because like I feel like everybody is a musician these days in Nashville. Like you can just talk to somebody that I don't know, a realtor, and it's like, yeah, I play a guitar, in a band or whatever in Broadway, and it's like, okay, interesting. you know?
And everybody's that way.
Yeah.
But we came just to be around it.
That's cool. That's
to be
awesome.
around the music.
Yeah.
Be around the atmosphere, and that's what makes Nashville great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So moved down here. Took a job at Bellmead Country Club just randomly. I'm a golfer myself, so didn't have a job when I got here, so walked in there, got a job, and ended up opening up a lot of doors for me. Great opportunity.
Yeah.
Went to Nashville State Community College.
Nice.
That was close to Bellmead at the time.
Yeah.
Got my associate's degree there, and then went out to MTSU. And got my finance degree from MTSU.
Good.
So worked at the country club through that whole time.
You still play any golf?
As much as I can.
Yeah,
it's hard with the kids.
Yeah.
Hard with the kids.
That's fun.
It's a lot of scrambles now.
Dude, I just recently started playing like maybe last year. It's one of those things that like I grew up in Spain, and like the number one sport is soccer, obviously, or football, right? The right. But so grew up playing soccer and came here, and I never even heard about golf in Spain. I mean, they do a lot. They actually have a great golf presence. I found out recently, but when I came here, I feel like golf is kind of like the bougie sport, like there's a lot of great connections. Like after getting into the financial side of the house, you get into the industry and it's like everybody plays golf. And you got like mortgage people, right? You got realtors, you got all these different business owners and entrepreneurs and everything that obviously have the time and the income to go out there and play and get frustrated for 4 hours.
That's it. So, frustration is key there.
Yeah. So but it's been fun. I mean, it's a good learning thing, and obviously, like I use it as like, or initially I used it as like meeting people and like, hey, let's go out and make some good connections. And then I started getting into it, and it's like, man, it's kind of a fun sport. I mean, you get to go out, you drink with your buddies, and like go out, hit some balls, and it's a good time.
It is. No, and that's what I realized working at the country club was that, there was all those people are business professionals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I would caddy, and there was business being done on the golf course, right?
Yep.
You'd have an individual like you that's
100%.
looking to bring on some clients or just show client appreciation, and they would take them on the golf course. 4 hours spent just hanging out, getting frustrated.
Absolutely.
But spending time with friends or clients. So that's what it's about. It's a social game for sure.
Absolutely.
You don't have that playing soccer, right? I mean,
right.
You do in a way, but when you're on the field, you're not talking business.
It's different. Yeah,
it's
not
back and forth.
Yeah. Because you're like focused on the game more than like the talking and the in between, rounds and stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's a good sport. Yeah. No, I enjoyed it, and that's what opened my eyes, honestly, to the finance world, because I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do at that time.
Yeah.
And just realizing the folks out there, a lot of successful individuals, were kind of all in that finance world.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, there's something here, right? There's a lot of opportunity in the finance space, so that's why I chose that degree. And didn't really know what I was doing, when I graduated. One of the members there owned a bank, and I graduated. And he's like, "So what are you going to do now?" I was like, "I got no idea."
Yeah.
She's like, "Come work for the bank." So I started with Avenue Bank just out of college as just a retail banker. Right?
Yeah.
So doing deposits, opening accounts.
Yeah.
Just kind of entry level position.
Sure.
But it gave me the opportunity to look around kind of the banking sector to see, where I'd fit in.
Yep.
And a lot of that comes down to golf. On the mortgage side, there's a lot of, I say a lot of golf, but it's a lot of entertaining.
Sure.
Bringing referral partners out, kind of showing them, meeting people, and kind of showing them what you do within the industry in the space to add value to them and their clients. So with that, I looked around the bank there and fell into the mortgage world.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at now. I started there as kind of a production assistant. So, working with processors, underwriters, head of the mortgage department, loan officers, learning the whole business up front, which I think was very beneficial, because there's a lot to the process that a lot of people don't know or don't see, even on the client side. There's a lot to it and a lot can happen, but kind of learning the back end of that has helped me in the producing role as I work with my team to make sure that everything runs smooth.
That's great. And are you on like the residential side or more like commercial? What's your expertise?
So residential.
Okay.
Nice. So residential. So I was with Avenue there, and then Pinnacle bought out Avenue.
Okay.
So I went to Pinnacle Bank for a couple years. Loved the time there. Great bank. But then an opportunity came to join Studio on the startup phase. Which I knew a lot of those folks from Avenue Bank when I first started. So it was kind of a natural place to me to fall into at Studio. So that's where I'm at now. And like I said, specialize in the residential side. So I don't do any of the commercial space. Those are for the other folks at the bank. So,
that's great. And so, I'm curious for anybody that's in the industry, like, what do you say are some of your, what's your strategy whenever it comes to, new clients and building relationships in that space? I mean, I feel like, anybody that's been around the, either real estate or finance or insurance, mortgage, all those kind of industries, like a lot of those people work together in a way, I feel like, right? Like a lot of those guys get together and get connected and sort of build these strategic partnerships and relationships, right, to help each other and grow in business. I mean, much like we're doing. What do you say is your process of like, hey, somebody maybe that's starting out in mortgage business, like, hey, what do you do to grow? What do you do to get connected with other individuals, right? What's your process?
Man, there's a lot to that. It really is. I mean, kind of in your space too. I mean, there's places you can start everywhere. I started with the relationship side. I think that's key. Having that trust in individuals. It starts with that relationship and trust before any business is going to be exchanged.
Sure.
So on our side, there's numerous ways you can get a client. So it could be from your sphere, right? From the people that whether it's them looking to purchase a home or a friend of theirs, right? So you kind of start there. Kind of work that network, and then a big thing on our end is real estate agents. A lot of
partner up with
a lot of clients will. They're checking out Zillow for homes. And it's like, hey, look at this one. Oh, I think we need to move. Next thing you know, they're looking to move. They reach out to an agent. Agent says, hey, have you talked to a bank? Do you know what you qualify for? And it's, I haven't yet. You're my first call. And then they usually refer it to us on the mortgage side.
Good.
That's one of the streams that come through. And then nowadays, you got social media. Right? So there's all the platforms there that you can put your name out there. And you kind of utilize that to show your partners or potential clients that you're aware of the industry, what's going on, you're keeping tabs on the pulse, just to show that, hey, like I'm an expert at what I do. So
absolutely. No, I feel like that's key, and like having those strategic individuals. I feel like especially in these kinds of industries, like. And one of the things too, like with networking groups, right? Like going to a place that you can actually exchange business together, refer each other business, and building those relationships is huge. And especially nowadays, because I feel like, the real estate market has been like up and down and all around in the last COVID and everything else happening after that, and now with the interest rates, I feel like that's kind of the main topic that everybody talks about, right? Like I feel like I was fortunate enough, I ended up getting into our home when the interest rates were like 2.7 or 2.75 or something, right? And now it's like the whole market is crazy, but is not as crazy as most people think. Like if you look at back in the history of things, right? Like I think interest rates were up to like what, 14 or even more percent. Like you probably know more about this, but now it's like some people are scared to getting into homes just because some of that. Like how you combat that, how you talk people through that process.
Yeah, well, it's tricky because to your point, there's a lot of folks out there that are, at a rate that's an historic low.
Yeah.
So the chances of it going back to that,
probably not.
Slim to none, right? So a lot of people financially are set up in an ideal position. Like that, this will be their lowest mortgage payment they will ever have.
Right.
If they ever decide to move.
Right.
And it's not the right time for everybody. I think there's a lot of folks that say, hey, why wait? Why wait? Well, maybe it is okay for you to wait for a couple of years, even if you're looking to move because you have that lower payment, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, life happens. So, you have that second or third kid, you outgrow that house, or you get a job and you got to move across town. I don't want the commute. So those are the decisions that you have to make.
Yeah.
And I always say that the numbers don't lie, right? So you know exactly what your financial position is right now.
Right.
If you're looking to move, well, let's look. Okay, so if you're looking to move across town, a little bigger house, what's that price point look like? What do we have for down payment? What is that? What does that monthly payment kind of roll into? And as a financial guy, you know that there's a decision to be made.
Right.
Okay, well, my payment's now going to be $900 more a month.
Right.
Is that something we can do?
Is it worth
it? Comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And some people, they say, yes, this is what we need for our family.
Right.
Purchase this home. We need a bigger home. Different school district, whatever that goes down to. But there's a lot of folks that say, man, I'm not doing that.
Right.
And that's not the right time for them.
Yeah.
We all know, historically speaking, real estate's a great investment, right?
Yeah.
Typically over time, houses appreciate.
Sure.
But we're also at a point where we had an accelerated appreciation rate over a handful of years.
Yeah.
Double digits.
Yeah.
That's slowed down, right? So we may not see that again here in Nashville, right? You had your big run for a handful of years, but generally speaking, the demand is still there. Supply is low, so you will see houses continue to appreciate, but not at the clip that you saw.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like I see some of the homes, like for anybody that's local to the Nashville area, I'm sure it happens with a lot of the other metro areas, but back like 40 years ago, people were buying homes for like 50 grand and 2 cows, and and then now it's like, oh, you're like in the downtown area is worth like $1.5 million for like a tiny, I feel like this happens probably in California quite a bit, and like homes that are like not, I mean, compared to what it is here, like maybe not as big or not as fancy or whatever, and it's like, $1.5 million just because of the area that they're in. Yeah. And now some of those people are probably taking advantage of that, right? Like in moving out or finding something else and cashing in on their long-term investment, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I just ran some numbers yesterday for Madison, Tennessee. Since 2019, the median list price has increased 74%.
Wow.
Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of that is luck, right?
Yeah.
You're in the market at that time,
sure.
2019, to buy a home. You move from Spain.
Yeah.
You end up in Madison or wherever you're at, and then 5 years later, you're like, holy smokes! Like, look at all this equity we have.
Yeah.
Just by making this decision to move.
No kidding. Yeah.
Now that 74% will not translate 5 years from now, I
sure.
don't think, right?
Yeah.
But still, you're going to get some appreciation there. Obviously, when you're paying your mortgage payment, you're paying down a principal balance, which is in essence a savings account for you, building equity.
Yeah.
When you rent, you don't have that, right? That money is kind of out the window. But then again, when you talk with first-time home buyers, there's a lot to owning a home, right?
Yeah.
You move in, and that payment could be $200 more a month than you're paying in rent, but you're building equity, which is great. Well, also the air conditioning could go out, right?
Good.
You got to get new carpet. You got a bad roof, right? So you don't have that renting.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare for that as well. There's a lot of other expenses.
Yeah. That's so funny. Like the first week we bought our first home, the AC unit blew out.
Yep.
The first week we bought the home, it was a condo in Brentwood, and literally like the AC unit blew out the next week. And we had to come up with like 10 grand or whatever or like 9 grand for the expense of the whole AC unit. Yeah. Like that's a big thing. Like for people are considering, like, and this is something, you can talk about if there's anybody that's a first home buyer, right? Like what are some of the things that you should plan for, that you should figure out before going into owning a home? I feel like a lot of people in our, I guess, generation, right? Like, you feel like the older generation maybe had it a little bit, quote unquote, easier when it comes to like going in and owning a home, right? I feel like the home prices have skyrocketed, but the salary and like the income has not really caught up just yet.
Yeah.
So it's almost like way harder to get into a first-time home? I know there's, depending on where you live, there's different programs and different things, right? Like, what are some of the things, like, if somebody wants to own a home, what's the things that they need to figure out, and like, hey, this is what you need to plan for, kind of thing?
Yeah, so there's a lot to that too. So there's first-time homebuyer programs that have down payment assistance.
Yeah.
Right. So there's income caps on that. There's different areas that have different incomes, different acquisition prices. So as a first-time home buyer, you kind of work your way through those programs, right? Because if you can get some money for a down payment, fantastic. Sometimes that doesn't happen, so then you kind of work your way through the products. But kind of working through and saying, okay, the big thing is, are you comfortable with the monthly payment?
Right.
And do you have the funds to close, right? So there's some folks that say, hey, I qualify, but I just don't have that down payment and closing cost yet. Right. So that's when you're educating and planning at that point. You're educating them on the loan that's going to work best for them, and then you're planning for when that time is right for them. And a lot of that just comes down to, okay, how bad do I want this?
Right.
And there's obviously different ways you talk through scenarios of like, hey, you can get a gift, right? So sometimes people are gifted money for a down payment from a family member to kind of get in the market. Doesn't work for everybody, but you kind of walk through these different options that people have. But like we said about the air conditioning unit, I mean, if you're renting,
that doesn't
happen. You just make a phone call and it's fixed.
Well,
as
sometimes.
Sometimes. But as a homeowner, it's like, okay, now I got to come up with $10,000. Right? So that's part of working with an awesome real estate agent is you're going to get an appraisal, you're going to get an inspection on the home that's going to uncover some of that stuff, right? So I know when we moved into our home, our air conditioning unit was about 10 years old. So it's kind of the tail end of its lifeline. So you kind of know that going into it. And we had to replace ours 2 years in. But I kind of knew that. So you could have opted not to purchase that home. And found a home that the air conditioning unit was 2 years old. But then the roof could be old. So, and then but those are all the things you walk through. And that's where the partnership is key, with the lender and the real estate agent, right? We're working on the financing side, the numbers. The real estate agent is helping them through like the actual house and the condition and potentially some issues that could come up in the near future to make sure that they're prepared for that.
Absolutely. And, one of the things too that I feel like a lot of people look at real estate, well, there's different ways of looking at it, right? Like some people that get into real estate for, their first home and things like that. Other people that are more on the investment side. How does that work with you guys? Like, because I know there's a lot of the market has changed quite a bit when it comes to like, especially in the commercial side, probably. I don't know if do much on that side, but the people moving from in-person work to a fully remote type of position, I feel like a lot of those properties have been vacant, maybe not vacant, but like a lot of the commercial real estate for offices and things like that have been affected by this. That has potentially affected some of the residential side too, right? And then I heard something a while ago that was like Zillow. And like companies like Zillow, I don't know if Realtor, there might be other companies, but I know specifically Zillow, that they purchase a lot of different homes in one area to like bump up the price, or like how does that affect you guys? Like how,
Yeah, I mean, that comes into, basically a competition, right? So you're right. So there's big institutions that'll come in and buy, blocks of house in certain areas, right? And then they're going to rent them out. Right. So those are the investors coming in. And that's, kind of the thought process right now is that some of those have pulled back while interest rates are higher. But as they start to trickle down, are they going to come back in? And that's just additional competition, right? So for your average person coming in to buy a home, potentially now there may be 2 or 3 offers on this house that they're going in on. Rates come down, do these investors come back into play? So now all of a sudden they come in with a cash offer, which typically wins. And somebody, your standard person getting a 30-year mortgage, they got to sell their house, there's a contingency on that. It's hard for them to get in. At that point. So time will tell what that looks like. If the investors come back in and Zillows and to say, hey, like we're jumping back in the market full force, and then it's kind of gangbusters again, like we saw through 2020, 2021.
No, I love that. And I'm curious too, like. I'm curious if you have any like funny stories or anything, like from the mortgage business. I know like in our side of the house, like in finance, man, like dealing with people is always a challenge. I'm always curious, like, what's the funniest interaction you've had with people, or like any crazy stories?
I don't know if it's funny. We have a lot of like random kind of things that come up. You know,
Sure.
for example, you know, our industry is very heavily regulated, right?
Yeah.
So 2007, 2008, kind of the housing crisis. You know, at that point, I was not in the business then, but from what I hear, it was like the Wild West, right? Where you had to pull so you could get a home. You know,
Yeah, pretty much.
Random. There was like zero standards, right?
Sure.
Now it's like we almost have to take your blood to see if you qualify for the loan, right?
Right.
So we're tracking everything. So there's been moments where, you know, we'll go through a situation and, you know, you try to explain everything to a client, right? You really do. That's the main thing, is like walk you through this process, but there's so much that it's so hard, you don't want to overwhelm them sometimes.
Right.
So there was a moment where a client, the day before closing, so we have everything set, ready to go.
Sure.
This is probably over $1 million home, and we get a notification over the weekend, they're closing on a Monday, that there was a credit pull. So we have to figure, what was the credit pull? Did you buy a boat? Did you buy what happened here? I mean, this is something you shouldn't do.
Right.
And the client got a credit card at Best Buy for a TV.
The day before?
Day before.
Oh my gosh.
And the wife knew, right? Because the wife calls me and is like, Dennis, I'm so sorry. I don't, like, blah, blah. I was like, well, now we have to go through this process of documenting.
You gotta figure out again,
And of course, you know, the question is, well, this is a TV and I'm buying $1 million home. That is correct, but also like,
but the credit affects everything.
There's the procedure that we have to follow, right? We have to follow these guidelines. So, anyways, those are the things that aren't funny, but that happen, that are random. And here recently, a client unfortunately got laid off.
Dang.
A week before he was supposed to close.
Oh, that's tough.
So you go through these situations of going through an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I don't know how he did it, but he got a job offer within a week.
Oh, wow.
And we only had to delay closing a week and a half till we got everything lined up. With
That's amazing.
Job. That is amazing.
Yeah. Heck
but,
yeah.
I don't funny stories. I don't know. There's a whole lot of funny ones. There's a lot of emotion and stress through the process.
Sure.
Because it's a big decision. But yeah.
Dang. Yeah, dude. I have some crazy so. You know, I work in the financial sector. You know, we do a lot of work with insurance and things like that, like life insurance specifically. And man, there's two stories. One, and I've only been in the industry for like a couple of years, so I don't really you know, I know there's a couple friends of mine that have some insane stories. They've been in the business for like 10 years. But one of the funniest things, or two of the funniest things, one, doing a call with somebody over Zoom just probably about 6 months ago, and she was an older lady, no shirt, just wearing a bra, talking to me, and I was like, yeah, and she started feeding the baby while we were on the call. I was like, yeah, we're rescheduling the call,
oh wow.
It was crazy.
And she knew the camera was on, or she thought it was on?
Yeah. I don't know. But we were talking, and we were doing a personal financial review, and literally just the craziest thing. And then there's another guy that was interested in getting life insurance, and as we were talking, he was on his phone and he was rolling a blunt. You know, it was California, which I get is legal, right? But still, if you're applying for a life insurance policy and you're just rolling up a blunt in the middle of the thing, I was like, all right, man, well, you know.
Good luck with your application. That's wild. No, I don't have any of those cool stories.
Oh, man.
Maybe I got to get your side.
It's crazy. Yeah, but I mean, shoot, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in that, you know, in that side of the house. But I mean, with your expertise, I mean, coming back to the mortgage side of things, any tips, anything for people to I'm curious on the networking side, that's really big, and then, you know, obviously purchasing homes, we talked about that, but specifically on the networking side, you know, talk about in-person events. What are some of the other things that you do to network and get out with individuals?
Yeah. So actually, Eric Thornton and I, friend and partner in the business space, we run B3 Social. Nice. So business bonding and beer. So it's a monthly event that we do in Hendersonville at the Rudder.
Dude,
so that kind of spurred up from just kind of natural relationships.
Yeah.
So we were both part of the Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce. They had a leads meeting every Wednesday, and this was before everybody was working from home, right? So I'm in Hendersonville working downtown. We'd be there at lunch. There's a little lunch group that went out after. Had about 3 hours at the end of the day where you're not driving back to Nashville. just to turn around and come into Hendersonville.
Yeah.
So we would meet up at Jonathan's and kind of finish our day there, a couple hours.
Yeah.
And then, we'd have, somebody come up and meet us, 3 people, 4. Next thing you know, we have, 3 tables together. There's 15 people at Jonathan's all kind of hanging out, kind of leaning into each other for a community in the business space or just to unwind and have a drink after work.
Sure.
So we kind of went through that. COVID hit. Brought it back a little bit at Jonathan's, and more people were coming. We're like, man, maybe we should do a bigger event, bigger space, to allow more conversations to flow instead of yelling across like a table.
Sure.
So that's when we moved it over to the Rudder in Hendersonville,
nice,
and kind of plugged it with the business bonding and beer as kind of how it all started.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great.
So it's a very laid back environment. We hope that it's more of like you come to make a friend, kind of relax, and then through that, business conversations happen.
That's amazing. Right. Is that once a month or?
Once a month. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get into that. That sounds
it's
fun.
And it's been an awesome experience. It's been really cool to see other business people come and say because of this group their business has taken off.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's taken a leap than they were before because of the connections they made.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the relationship side, right? The people the people within your network that you can help and lean on.
Yeah.
This all comes back and helps you grow, not personally, but also professionally.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool, and we're working on launching an extended community called Business Builders.
Okay.
So this will be a monthly kind of meetup group of people on a membership base that are coming together that want to take their business to the next level.
That's great.
So through doing these monthly events, we've realized that entrepreneurs that are on their own, salespeople, they don't really have a team that they lean on.
Yeah.
It's kind of just them, right? In the mortgage space, I work for Studio, I got a team, but you're kind of on your own, right? You're your own person within the company.
Right.
And sometimes you want some folks to bounce some ideas off.
Yeah.
Or 100%. You just want to continue to learn.
Yeah.
So business builders are for those people that want to take their business to the next step.
That's
have
amazing.
A community that they can lean on.
Yeah.
So there'll be select events every month for the community. There'll be an online platform that we can lean into. And if you want some accountability, we can do that. It won't be like a BNI where we're tracking all this stuff.
Yeah.
But some people do need that, right? If you're looking to kick off 24 and you're trying to implement something in your business, well, who holds you to that? I mean, you may have somebody.
Sure.
But in the business builder community, you and I can partner, and I can say, David, I'm looking to do this. You're looking to do this. I'm going to check in with you.
I love that.
How's it going this week?
Yeah.
Man, I didn't get it. I didn't get what did you do? Well, this. I'm like, all right, next week I'm gonna hold you to that on Tuesday. We're making these calls. We're implementing this in your process to get better.
That's amazing. That is so huge because I feel like people that, especially when you write down your goals, when you reverse engineer things that you're trying to accomplish, you're far, far more likely to accomplish what you're set out to do. But I think having an accountability person to help you through those things is huge. I mean, I felt like in business, in fitness, in everything that you were setting out to do, having somebody like a coach or a mentor, right? Who are some of those mentors for you? Have you had any mentors on the mortgage space or on finance? I know you do some stuff with the bookkeeping side of things. Who's your mentors, or if you have anybody that you lean on?
I've had a few in the mortgage space that I've kind of leaned on through the years. But you kind of go back to the business builder side is a lot of it is lonely, right? You are kind of on your own.
Yeah.
You're, like I said, you're building your own brand, your own business within a business.
Yeah.
And through that, there's podcasts you listen to, you take some info from. But there are some folks in the mortgage space that I've leaned on through the years for that. But ultimately, when it comes down to the accountability, you want it to be fun, right? Because there's also groups that man, I don't want to get on this call because this guy is going to call me out for this.
Sure.
We're all friends.
Yeah.
Consider each other family.
Yeah.
And just want to help each other, right? And that's where that accountability comes from. And kind of you'll see, we're going to highlight some speakers on a monthly basis that are going to be plugged in place for specific topics to help you grow.
That's
right?
good.
So that could be on the business side, personal side. You had mentioned working out. It could be on the workout side. How do you get better at that, right? Because we can all get better at every aspect of our life.
I love that.
And that's part of the group.
We'll help
everybody through that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like, one of the biggest things in our agency, we talk about the 5 F's, right? We talk about faith, family, finances, fitness, and fun. So those are our 5 F's that we live by. And I feel like that all goes hand in hand. A lot of the entrepreneurial minded people go through those phases, faith, whatever that means for you, right? You don't have to be a believer necessarily to to implement faith in your business, in your life. Obviously, family is a big thing. Finances, fitness, a big thing as well, and fun. You gotta always have fun with things and making sure that you're going into business, but it's not all about business. You know, like if you're not having fun with what you're doing, I feel like this is something too that I'm curious what you think, but some of the younger generation, I feel like have this mindset of getting things fast, and if you're not a millionaire by age 25, you're doing something wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like we kind of have that culture, like the social media influencers and all these people that are making all this money and things like that, and like I feel like that affects in a way a little bit of the mental health of people, and being like, hey, I'm 30 years old and I'm not where I need to be. Like, am I a failure? Like, I know a lot of individuals go through those phases, right, of entrepreneurship, of not the highlight reel that most people see on social media, right, but the reality of it, of like, hey, there's a lot of, if you're in a business and there's a lot of work that needs to happen for you to get to where you need to be. And sometimes you may be in the wrong business, and sometimes you need to explore other things. I mean, you probably see some of that happening as well, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's, there's a lot to that. And to your point on social media, that's the highlight reel for everybody.
Right.
And I'm to blame just as well, right?
Yeah. We all do the highlight reel.
I don't think anybody's posting, when your kid's crying and having a temper tantrum and you're like losing your mind.
Yeah.
You never see that, right? You see vacations when you're like, hey, I'm with my family.
Yeah. Cancun is great,
Absolutely, yeah. And we're all to blame for that, but I think a lot of that does put pressure on everybody, right?
Yeah.
Because you go on there and you're scrolling through and you're like, oh man, this guy's doing great. But you don't really know. Right?
Yeah.
And we're all in a position where you're trying to get better, right? And you need that push sometimes. Going back to the business builder side is, a lot of that is like, hey, let me just talk to somebody. Right? Yeah. Like somebody that's been in business maybe 5 years before.
Yeah, help you a little bit with it. Yeah.
Like, hey man, here's where I'm at in the season of my life in business. Mm-hmm. That individual could be like, man, I was there. I can tell you that I learned this through this process, and it got me to where I'm at. And you can just lean on that person.
Yeah.
And that'll help you get through whatever time you're in.
Absolutely.
And that could be, hey, you may be in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like branching out and doing something different?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to look at everything sometimes.
That's true. Yeah. I think about too, like we were talking about this off air, but some of the, speaking of the social media stuff, on the mortgage side, on real estate, I feel like there's so many shows these days, right? Of like, I mean, shoot, I'm hooked just as much as the other guy, right? Like Selling Sunset and all these other shows, right? Like the funniest thing, like I really like the ones that are like makeover and like they show the family like this whole like new house and things. Those are really cool. But it's funny, some of the other ones that's like a guy, a married couple, and it's like, yeah, I work as a McDonald's cashier, and I make $7 an hour, and my budget is $1 million. Like,
and as a mortgage person, I'm like, are they buying this? Like, where do they get this money from? Or that income doesn't add up here.
Yeah. It's always in like Texas somewhere. It's like this multi-million-dollar home is only like $200,000. Like, you've seen every of those?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, there's a lot of these homes in Texas. What are we doing?
Yeah. I think they set some unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but they're fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's TV, made for TV.
That's
right.
Get
you hooked and get you coming back.
Yeah. No, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I'm sure you probably. I mean, a lot of people have. Mostly probably realistic expectations, when they're looking at buying a home and everything. But what are some of the biggest challenges you think that you've encountered, or like kind of going forward? What's sort of the goals that you're setting out for the next few years? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I guess on the affordability side of people purchasing a home, I mean, there's a few different things, right? Credit score is a big deal.
Sure.
So some people need to work on a credit score to get to where that needs to be.
Yeah.
Your monthly debt is used to qualify. So some people have more debt than they would like. Honestly, that nobody wants to go into debt, but also sometimes that needs to be paid off to get them to qualify for the house they want.
Yep.
And other times, it's an income thing, right? It may just come down to, hey, you got to get another job to make some more money to qualify for this house that you want, right? That you're shooting for. So that gives them a goal, right? So it's like, hey, I'm in this position now, and I need to strive to get to this next spot in my company
Yeah.
with this income level to get where I need to be.
That's right.
And then obviously down payment. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of factors that
There's
go
a lot
into
of
it.
yeah.
And it is overwhelming for a lot of folks, right? And I think that's why a lot of people don't like to have that initial conversation.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes to hear bad news or a no.
Sure.
But without that, you can't plan.
Right.
And you can't take the right steps to get there.
That's true.
And that could potentially set you back a few years, right?
Yeah.
Or you just may, online is good for a lot of stuff, but it's not all factual.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people go online and do the research, which you need to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, that's not all 100% accurate.
Yeah.
But talking to a professional that they cut their teeth on that stuff
Yeah.
and that's how they make their living, they're going to provide you with the facts
Yeah.
to help you plan to get into that home.
Yeah, speaking of that, I saw an article the other day. We might put the link in there. That real estate agents, and this might be kind of around your industry, but that real estate agents were being cut commissions on deals because a lot of people are complaining and suing that they can do a lot of the research on their own, right? Like, I feel like this day and age, a lot of people are very well informed, and at their fingertips they can see, like, I saw something the other day about it. It was like, people on the real estate, like, getting not as much commission because the real estate agent was, I guess, is not justified, like, because people are doing research on their own. Does that happen in mortgage too, or?
No, not as much on the mortgage side. Their commission structure is a lot different than ours. But there's a big push on that side right now. There was a lawsuit that happened, and it'll probably take years to resolve.
Sure.
I will say that the agents that I work with, they work for their clients and
Sure.
they earn the commissions. There's a lot to that.
Yeah.
But just like anything, even on the mortgage side, like, there's processes that have been in place for decades that are archaic now, right?
Right.
So is there ever a time to readjust the process or just the standard that's been set? I don't know. I don't know if that's the case on the real estate side. But the mortgage world saw that in 7 and 8. This is before I was in it.
Yeah.
But, there was opportunities for loan officers to quote a higher rate to get extra commission, right? So there was that for a while, and then that got cut.
Yeah.
And now there's lending standards that are in place, fair lending acts that you have to abide by to ensure that each client is treated fairly, and that you're not taking advantage of anybody.
That's true.
So
yeah.
things change over time. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens there. But,
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's always something going on.
Yeah.
Something going on.
What do you think is going to be like on the future? I feel like, the house prices have been just going up and up and up and up for the last, however many years.
Yeah.
How do you see that evolving in the mortgage industry? Is there a moment that you think we're going to have another? We've seen a little bit of a crash, but like another, another 2008 kind of thing. Like, how do you think that that's evolving?
Yeah, so that's tough to say. I will say from the research that I've done, when 2007 and 8, you had people getting mortgages that they shouldn't have, right? I think that's well known. So
that's a big thing.
They were put in a position to almost fail at the time.
Yeah.
So you can hate the process now because of what we have to do to get you into a home, but we're ensuring that where you sit financially, you can make those payments.
Right.
So personally, I don't think you're going to see an influx of foreclosures like you did back then.
Sure.
Because you had, different products that were
like the
balloon
subprime
products,
mortgages,
our mortgages
yeah.
coming, like all this stuff forced people into foreclosure.
Right.
You don't have that right now. People are sitting on a lot of equity.
Yeah.
So that means that these homes that you saw in 2007-8, an influx of inventory is not coming.
Right.
Because that was based on the foreclosure side.
Yeah.
So those people are in a good financial position, and you're not going to see the inventory come.
Yeah.
So I look at it as simple supply and demand, right? Supply is still low, and there's no cure for inventory. The only thing you can do is build new homes. Builders control that, right? And they can only build so fast.
Yeah.
And the demand, people are still moving. And I think that's when it comes down to specific cities. So you can look at it nationally, which is what a lot of people do. But Nashville, Tennessee is a lot different than Cleveland, Ohio.
Sure.
Cleveland, Ohio is a lot different than Miami, Florida.
Right.
And even within Nashville, there's certain pockets that are a lot different, right?
Yeah.
Different pockets are still just blowing up, while different areas of Nashville are maybe calmed a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's just because of the demand side.
Yeah.
There may not be as much a demand in that area. So I think, you'll see a plateau. We won't see the double-digit appreciation that we've seen.
Yeah.
And you may see a little pullback, but a crash, I would be surprised. I'm no expert, but I would be surprised if you saw any sort of housing crash, especially here in Nashville.
Yeah. It all depends on the area that you are too. I feel like a good thing too, especially people in the mortgage industry or real estate, having somebody that you can partner up to on the financial side to like make sure that you can help those individuals qualify for those homes, right? And plan and stay prepared and protected. Those are great things to do as well. But man, I mean, it's been a pleasure having you. I mean, any final words? Where can people find you? I mean, yeah,
well, I'm on Instagram. Is probably my favorite social media platform. Mortgage Cowboy is my handle there.
Mortgage Cowboy, I love that.
Yeah, that comes from, long story short, moving here for country music.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't sing, would never sing, so I can't be a cowboy in country music.
Yeah.
Never rode a horse or done any cowboy stuff on that aspect. So
Sure.
I'm in mortgage, so I can be a mortgage cowboy. So
I love that, yeah.
So that was toked by a buddy of mine that I worked with.
That's great.
So anyways, Mortgage Cowboy on Instagram, studiobank.com. You can see me on the mortgage side there as well. If you look up the partners, Facebook, Dennis Tulpa on Facebook as well. And check out Business Bonding Beer. Check out some of our events, and we'd love to have you out. And
dude, I'm gonna be out
come
there.
For a good time.
I love that. That's amazing. Good stuff. Well, I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you having me, brother.
Yeah, yes, sir. And
awesome.
Merry Christmas, by the way, to everybody. We're put in the comments too. What's some of your experiences with the mortgage industry? Like any mortgage brokers, lenders out there, would love to hear your thoughts on all this. And we'll see you next year, I guess. All right, take it easy. Bye.
See ya.
All right, sweet.
Awesome.
I lost the
That went
count
quick.
on the. We'll see how much that lasted, but.
I bet you it was